I am Gresham, and welcome back to Gresham Reads Graceling by Kristen Cashore. So, last time, Poe's injuries had led him... Poe's injuries from his attempted assassination of King Lek, as well as the fall he took from the cliffside into the river, into, I believe it was a pond below, or lake, had resulted in him being highly disoriented. And even as he recovered slowly, he grew to understand that in order for Katsa to protect Bitterblue, as well as herself, they would need to leave him behind. And due to his disorientation, he didn't quite have the sense to fully hide his grace from Bitterblue. Luckily, though, the girl remained unaware of the true nature. So, after convincing Katsa that they needed to, they began to search for a place for him to stay whilst they traveled to Lynid. So, let us begin with chapter 28, and potentially 29 as well. Chapter 28. In the pink of dawn, they stumbled upon a small cabin with little to offer except its shell. An abandoned cabin, perhaps once the lair of some Monsian hermit. It stood in a hollow more grassy than rocky, with a tree or two and a patch of weeds that looked as if it might once have served as a garden. Forgive me, I was stretching. Broken shutters and a cold fireplace. A blanket of dust on the rough wooden floor, on the table and the bed. On the cabinet that leaned on 3 lopsided legs with its door hanging open crookedly. This is where I'll hide, Poe said. This is a place to live, Poe, Katsa said. It's not a place to hide. It's far too obvious. No one will pass it without going inside. But I could stay here, Katsa, and hide someplace nearby if I hear them coming. What hiding place had he sensed nearby? Poe, I wonder if there's a pond anywhere, he said. Come with me, ladies. I'm sure I hear water. There was no sound of water that cats could hear, which meant that Poe could hear none either. She sighed. Yes, she said. I think I hear it too. They moved across the grasses behind the cabin. Poe leaned against Katsa, and Bitterblue led the horse. Soon Katsa actually did hear water, and when they topped a brownish rise, when the grass gave way to boulders, she saw it. 3 great streams clambered down from the rocks above, joined together and poured over a ledge into a deep pool. Here and there at its edges, the pool overflowed, and a number of streams trickled downward and eastward toward the Monsian forest. Very well, Katsa thought to her. And where's this hiding place? There's a waterfall like this in the mountains near my brother Sky's castle, Poe said. We were swimming one day and we found a tunnel underwater that led to a cave. Katsa knew where this was going, and Bitterblue's puzzled look. No, it would be more accurate to call it her suspicious look. suggested that Poe had already said more than enough. Katsa sat Poe down. She pulled off one of her boots. "If there's a hiding place in this pool, Poe, I'll find it for you." She pulled off her other boot. "But just because a hiding place exists doesn't mean it'll do you any good. You can't get from the cabin to this pool on your own." "I can," he said, "to save my life." "What'll you do? Crawl?" "There's no shame in crawling when one can't walk, and swimming requires less balance." She glared at him, and he looked calmly back, the slightest hint of amusement on his face. And why shouldn't he be amused? For she was about to plunge into near-freezing water to search for a tunnel he already knew existed and explore a cave of which he already knew the exact size, shape, and location. "I'm taking off my clothes," she said, "so look away, Lord Prince." For she could at least spare her clothing, and if this entire episode was a performance for Bitterblue, then they might as well also pretend Poe was in no position to see her with her clothes off. Though Katsa didn't suppose Bitterblue was any more fooled by that pretense than by the others. She stood beside the horse and kept her own counsel, and her eyes were big and childlike, but they were not unseeing. Katsa sighed. She pulled off her coat. "Point me in the right direction, Poe." She followed his gaze to the base of the waterfall. She threw her trousers onto the rocks beside her coat and boots. She clenched her teeth against the cold and stepped into the pool. Its bottom sloped steeply, and with a yelp she was submerged. She dived. The rocks of the pool floor shone green far below her, and silver fish flashed in the light. She was surprised by the depth of this waterfall. She kicked towards the waterfall. Her vision was all but useless in the cascade of bubbles at its base, but she felt along the rocks with her hands and found, in the dark below the pouring water, a cavity that must be Poe's tunnel. She smiled despite herself. She would never have found this secret place on her own. Likely not a single person had ever done what she was about to do. She shot to the surface for a breath of air, then dived back down and pulled herself through the opening. It was dark in this tunnel, black, and the water was even colder than the water in the pool. She could see nothing. She kicked forward through the tunnel and counted steadily. Rocks scratched her arms, and she felt in front of her with her hands to avoid cracking her head against anything unexpected. It was narrow, but not dangerously so. Poe would have no trouble if he were well enough to swim. As her count neared the number 30, the passageway widened, and then the tunnel walls disappeared all around. She shot upwards, hoping to break through the surface, for she didn't know where to find the air of this black cave if it wasn't straight above. She was conscious now of her sense of direction, at which Poe had always marveled. If she lost the tunnel in this darkness, and if she couldn't find an opening to the surface, it was over for Katsa. But Katsa knew exactly where the tunnel was, behind her and below her. She knew how far she'd gone and in what direction. She knew up and down, east and west. The darkness wouldn't claim her. And of course, Poe would never have sent her into this cave if it were a place she could not endure. Her shoulder hit rock, and she heard a muffled slap that sounded like the surface water on her shoulder. She kicked forward toward the sound, and then her head burst above water. She felt around and found the rock whose underside she'd struck. It jutted above the surface and fell flat and mossy on top. She pulled herself onto it, teeth chattering. It was blacker in this cave than any night she'd ever known. There was not a flash on the water, Not even a thinner blackness gives shape in the space around her. She stretched her arms but touched nothing. She had no sense of height of the ceiling or the depth of these walls. She thought she heard water slapping against rock for some distance, but she couldn't be sure without exploring, and she wouldn't explore because they hadn't the time. So this was Poe's cave. He would be safe enough here if he could get himself here. For no one who didn't share his grace would ever find him in this cold black hole under the mountain. Katsa slipped back into the icy water and dived for the tunnel. She came ashore with a pair of wriggling fish in her hands. "I found your cave," she said. "It'll be easy enough for you to manage if by some wonder of medicine and healing you're able to swim. The tunnel is just below the fall of water, and here's your dinner." She threw the fish onto the rocks and dried herself with a cloth Bitterblue brought to her. She dressed. She held out her hand for Poe's knife, and he tossed it to her. She beheaded the fish and cut them open. She threw the entrails back into the pond. "You must go now," Poe said. "There's no point in delay." "There's some point in delay," Katsa said. "What'll you eat after these fish are gone?" "I'll manage," Katsa snorted. "You'll manage? You don't even have a bow. And even if you did, I'd like to see your aim right now. We'll not leave until you've plenty of food and firewood." "Katsa, honestly, you must go. Simply must. The horse needs the rest of a morning," Katsa said. "And from now on, it will ride hard. And She refused, simply refused, to give in to the panic that rattled around inside her. And winter's coming. You can make me leave you here, but you can't make me leave you here to starve to death." Poe rubbed his eyes and he sighed. You'll need a lot of firewood. I'll get started," Bitterblue said, and Poe laughed outright. "I'm outnumbered," he said. "Very well, Katsa. Do what you must, but before morning passes, you'll be on your way." The morning was a whirl. The faster Katsa moved, the less she could think, and so she moved as fast as her feet and her fingers were capable. She caught in 2 rabbits, which he could cook with the fish that night, and store safely for a number of days. She cursed the weather. It was cold enough for Poe to be uncomfortable during the day, when he couldn't risk a fire. But it wasn't cold enough for freezing meat, nor did they have salt to treat it. She couldn't kill the meat now to last the winter, or even to last him a number of weeks. And in a number of weeks, the hunting would become difficult for even those hunters who walked steadily on their feet and carried a bow. "Have you ever made a bow?" she asked him. "Never." "I'll find you the wood," she said, "before we leave. And you'll have the hides of these rabbits to reinforce the stave and for the string. I'll explain to you how it's done." She cursed herself for the feathers she'd discarded from all of the birds she'd killed. But when a rushed passage over the rocks disturbed a roost of quail, she swept up stones from the ground and managed to knock the majority of them down. There would be Bitterblue's dinner in her own, and Poe would have feathers for arrows. When she found a young tree with strong, flexible limbs, she chose a curved piece for the bow and some long, straight branches for arrows. And then she had a thought. She cut more branches and split them apart. She began to weave a sort of basket, square with sides, top and bottom, about the length of her arm. She wove it tightly with small openings between the slits. When she came back to the pool where Poe still sat in Bitterblue, still scrambled for firewood, she carried the basket on one shoulder and the quail and branches on the other. She cut a couple lengths of rope and tied them to the edge of her basket. She lowered the basket into the pool, just deep enough that it couldn't be seen, and tied the ropes to the base of a bush on shore. Then she pulled off her boots, her coat, and her trousers, and prepared herself once more for the icy shock of the water. She dived, she hung suspended under the water, and waited, and waited. When a fish flashed nearby, she grabbed. She swam to the basket and slid back the slats. She squeezed the wriggling fish inside and fastened the slats again. She dived back down, snatched another fish, swam to shore, and deposited the squirming body into the basket. She caught fish for Poe. So many fish that by the time she was done, the basket swarmed with their crowded bodies. "You may have to feed them," she said when she'd returned to shore and dressed. "But they should last you some time. And now you must go." "I want to make you crutches first." "No," Poe said. "You'll go now." "I want Katsa." "Do you think I want you to go?" "If I'm telling you to go, it's because you must." She looked into his face and then looked away. "We need to divide our belongings. Bitterblue and I have already done that. I must trust your shoulder one last time." "The child has already done so." "Your water flask, it's full." Bitterblue came over the top of the rise and then joined them. "The cabin is bursting with firewood," she said. "It's time for you to go." And he leaned forward, balanced himself, and stood. Katsa bit back her protest, and gave him her shoulder. Bitterblue untied the horse, and they made their way back to the cabin. "Your balance is better," Katsa thought to him. "Come with us." "Cousin," Poe said. "Excuse me," Poe said. "Don't let her run the horse ragged, and be sure she sleeps and eats every once in a while. She'll try to give all the food to you." "As you have done," Bitterblue said, and Poe smiled. "I try to give you most of the food," he said. "Katsa will try to give you all of it." They stopped at the entrance to the cabin, and Poe leaned back against the door frame. "Come with us," Katsa thought, as she stood before him. "They'll be on your tail," Poe said. "You must not let them get close enough to talk to you. Think about disguising yourself. You're dirty and bedraggled, but any fool would recognize either of you. Katsa, I don't know what you can do about your eyes, but you must do something. Come with us." Bitterblue must help Katsa if she's confused by any word she hears. You must help each other. Don't trust any Monsoon, do you understand? You mustn't trust anyone who may have been touched by Lex Grace. Don't for a moment think you can defeat him. Oh. Darkus, what was that? Yeah, sorry, I almost dropped these plates. Sorry about that. Right. Be careful next time. Yeah, I will. Just this frame I got set up for my backdrop, I almost tripped over it. Well, be careful. Try not to hurt yourself. Yeah, I know. Now, where was I? Here I was. And don't think for a moment you can defeat him, Katsa. Your safety is in escaping him. Do you understand? Come with us. Katsa. His voice was rough, yet gentle. You understand what I'm saying? I understand, she said, and when a tear trickled down her cheek, he reached out and wiped it away with one finger. He studied her face for a moment, and then he turned to Bitterblue. He bent down on one knee and took her hands. "Farewell, cousin," he said. "Farewell," the child said gravely. He stood again gingerly and leaned back against the door frame. He closed his eyes and sighed. He opened his eyes and looked into Katsa's face. His mouth twitched into the slightest grin. "I've always intended to leave me, Katsa." She choked on a sob. "How can you choke? You know this isn't what I meant." "Oh, Katsa. Wildcat." He touched her face. He smiled so that it hurt her to look at him, and she was sure she couldn't leave him alone. He pulled her close and kissed her, and he whispered something into her ear. She held on to him so hard that his shoulder must have ached, but he didn't complain. Katsa didn't look back as they rode away, but she gripped Bitterblue tightly, and she called to him, his name bursting inside her so painfully that for a long while she could feel nothing else. Oh, this next chapter's a lengthy one. I may make this, I probably should have read chapter 28 with the last one. Well, actually, no, because this chapter is easily twice as long, and I'm already halfway through my, allotted time, so I may leave this one here and read the next one solo. It certainly is a heartbreaking moment. I do hope that Poe will be safe as all of this goes on. And I wonder what will happen with Katsa and Bitterblue as they make their way towards Lyned. How will they get a ship if Lek begins to spread word of his daughter being kidnapped? It is difficult to say what will happen, but I'm looking forward to seeing what will occur. Anyways, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like and a comment down below telling your favorite part of this chapter, as well as your favorite part of the story overall. And also feel free to share the video around. The viewership will only help the channel, and Darkus, myself, and the other voices truly wish to see it grow. Also, if you enjoy the content on this channel, feel free to subscribe and ring the notification bell so that you know whenever I open this book once more for the next chapter. I am Gresham, and I will see you all in the next video. I do hope you have a good day.